Hi, everybody, welcome. Asking people to come on here 8 minutes before worked. Now we're on time here, everybody. And I think the first few minutes, I'm gonna have people come in. I'm gonna be multitasking. I intentionally choose the song or songs that I play when I do this kind of event. I used to do a lot of event monthly basis. The last one I actually did in April and in January. So moving forward, I'm back to do it on a monthly basis because I'm now approaching from a little bit different angle where it is just another way that I express myself, my message, and the voice. And that's something that I will be encouraging everybody to actually demonstrate during the event and also beyond. It's really important for all of us to find our own voice in this world and to be clear with our message. And the message is the reflection of your mission. And the mission is embedded in the journey of the soul. And it's been written and painted through our past, present version of us. So I'm going to be presenting my journey and why I have come to do what I'm doing. I'm going to be presenting who we are and what we are. Okay, a lot of people are joining right now. I'm multitasking. We are school, it's kind of interesting. Let me start this way. So there are a lot of people who have been in my space for quite some time. There are a lot of people who join newly every single time, and I like to share a little bit of my background story because not for the sake of sharing, but for the sake of helping all of us reflect our own journey. Because if you got attracted to this event title being whole or wholeness, you probably have been on the journey of the spiritual and the invisible world. And that's how I started. I was so aware of that maybe at the age of 5 and 6 when I was actually growing up in Southern America, a country called Peru. And then I went back to Tokyo at the age of 11. And Peru and Japan are so different countries. I don't know if anybody here have been to any of the countries. Peru is a developing country. So I but both countries have great food, by the way. Yeah. But Peru is a developing country, means that I was on my father's back seat. My dad was driving, and at every single red light that we stop, different street children comes to either sell what they're selling or, you know, asking for cleaning the window just to collect money and just to collect money for the day that they were living. Yeah. So my early stage of my life, I have witnessed that as I growing up, and I felt almost helpless that I couldn't do anything, right? So that has sort of imprinted my early childhood. And at the age of 11, different things happen in country Peru, and we decided to go back to Tokyo. Now everything is automatic. It's so clean in a completely different culture, but nevertheless, Japanese weren't living any happier life than the Peruvian, right? And that made me sort of think of, okay, what is happening? And then in that process, in that journey of being exposed to two completely different culture, living not only in two countries but continents, I felt really connected to something that was beyond the visible world, that I had this intuitive knowing that there is a plane that I cannot see, but I can feel and sense. And not only that, I knew that that's where we were coming from. Yeah, I knew. And it's not like somebody taught me or somebody told me. Yeah. But intuitively, at the age of 5, 6 to 11, 12, I was putting things together to go to school and, you know, going through this process of individualization just like anybody else. But then deep inside, I knew that the spiritual dimension that I felt so connected to is what was calling me for the entire time. And I started to explore. So I went to school, which I actually didn't care. The traditional school is the opposite way. That's I feel like the traditional school comes from the understanding that it doesn't come from the understanding that we're spiritual being. Then the education and what education means gets distorted. So it becomes memorization, it becomes acquiring of the knowledge. Yeah. And I had so difficult time accepting the need to go through all the school, you know, process in order to move through life. I had a strong resistance against it, and it didn't make sense to me at all. And I was watching all my friends going through what didn't make sense to me, and I wasn't inside of that box because I, changed the countries that I love. So I was able to kind of step outside and look at what everybody was doing. And everybody was going through the school and then studying for the test and exam without questioning why they're doing what they're doing. And then go through acquiring the grade that's being expected. And then going through schools and looking for the job based on the school. And intuitively inside of me knew that this shouldn't be the way that we want to go through. Yeah. And then my exploration led me to just go to a bookstore. And then the initial encounter was when I was working at the part-time job and I opened a wisdom book in the break room. And then when I opened it, I read something that I had been feeling internally for the longest time that made me realize that, oh, somebody's actually writing what I have been feeling for that entire life. Then that, from their snowball, I went to a bookstore and I started to explore different books. Um, Conversation with God by Neil Donald Walsh was something that impacted me. I came across his book when he published it, and I was waiting for the next one to be published. I read one after another that I immersed myself in this spiritual, transpersonal psychology field, and I never looked back, right? I had a different kind of career, but I intuitively I knew that this is the path that I was called to and meant to live. And like back then, I was a teenager, and somewhere inside of me, I didn't know that that was a coaching or mentoring or sharing this wisdom to people to wake up. But I knew that that's what I was here to do. And also, I knew that in order for me to play that role, which I am, to guide people to go back home, which is to have people express and experience the awakened self. That is what home means. And we're going to talk about, today we're going to talk different things around the structure of wholeness. And I'm going to share my interpretation of what wholeness is. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking more about the experience of wholeness. Now that we understand it, how do we live our life fully connected to the creator, the contact with the whole? So it doesn't stay as an intellectual knowledge or information, but a lived experience. And that's another layer that I had I was challenged by the traditional educational school system, which there are a lot of different schools that are emerging that's different. And it doesn't, it's confined with the informational gathering, but it doesn't take you to an embodiment. So we are, I see what we are doing as a school in a different way in school. But let's say, for instance, in a traditional, model, we have like a master's degrees and what is it? Doctor's degree. Yeah. What we do Satori Mindset Institute is a embodiment degree. Yeah. We have an embodiment degree of waking people up. We have an embodiment degree of self-realization to realize yourself. And we have recently created launched a embodiment degree of soulpreneur. Yeah. Those who are soul-led, who wants to transform the world, aligning with the mission of awakening the world. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea. Yeah. We are in embodiment degrees of internal transformation and embodiment degree of forming an identity as a soul-led entrepreneur so we can begin creating a ripple effect to transform and awaken the world. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the idea around wholeness. And it's very interesting because when I do this kind of event, I intuitively things comes to me. The way that I want to start is to sort of ask everybody because I don't want this to be a downloading of the information, but I want this to be a feeling and I want this to be a whole body experience for all of us to actually reflect our own life. Yeah. So let's start here. So my journey of spirituality myself and also witnessing a lot of people, I see that there are four categories, and I have never explained this way. So this is new. If anybody has been with me, this is a new perspective. Yeah. There are people who sort of know and feel that spiritual dimension, but then they're so trapped into this sort of victim mode and then living the life with that fundamental assumption that why this is happening to me. Yeah. That's like a first category. Yeah. And then now the pain increases and people start seeking assistance. And then that's the first group of people. The second group of people is they start becoming familiar with different modalities in the world and then begin wanting to do something about their past, let's say trauma or the wound or something that they feel stuck with, right? So we are programmed genetically and environmentally. So then that conditioning we carry as a memory and biographical self. And that shows up as an identity, that shows up as a thinking pattern, that shows up as an emotional home that we're living. And nobody wants to feel and experience and carry their pain. So they want to do something about it. Yeah. Now, that's the second category, which is attention to the wound. They're focusing on the wound and want to do something about the wound. Yeah. That's number two. Number three is I here and there I meet this group of people. Yeah. And then I feel like, and I say category, but I almost feel like this is like a stage of consciousness for me, the stage of awakening process. Yeah. Now, there are a group of people who really know and understand and believe that we are more than the physical creature. Yeah. And then they begin studying the spiritual dimension. Yeah. And the goal for them is, first of all, to not have any goal because goal is not in the spiritual realm. But what they're seeking is transcendence, right? So when we meditate, probably most of us here have an experience of meditating. We go to this place of complete expansion that your identification and the conception of you and the psychology start dissipating. And then literally the shape and the form of the body sensation becomes one with the ether. And then you will have zero experience of separation from the rest of the world, right? So when we meditate or when we, go up in the mountain, or some of the psychedelics, medicinal stuff allows us to go to that state of mind and the being, right? So there are a group of people who actually embrace that and seeks that and wants to be in that state. So that's number three. I don't belong to any of those groups. Yeah, those are stages. Yeah. And I have actually been in every single stage. Yeah. The fourth stage, we can divide in many, many more different stages, but just for the sake of simplicity, the fourth stage is the integration of who we truly are and the way that we're expressing and experiencing in life. So let me divide a little bit more. One of the things that I often mention is that this line that we are spiritual being and then we're living in this physical body and then we are gifted with the intellectual mind, right? Now, what that means is that we are not the mind and then we are not the body. So the moment we identify our mind as the I, we are trapped inside of the mind. Yeah. Now, many of us who have been on a spiritual path probably understand that idea. And then what we want to reflect as a practice and as an embodiment is, okay, if my mind is not the I, that's why I call my mind, because I cannot be my mind and the I that observe the mind at the same time. With that assumption, how would I show up? How would I express myself? How would I experience life? Yeah. We're going very deep right away in the first like 18, 19 minutes, but I'm going to talk slow, right? Because the whole path and the message that we have is that the information and the knowledge is not going to transform us, but what we are really seeking is the fundamental transformation. Yeah. And the transformation happens only when we learn how to embody. And in the way in which we can embody these practices takes a little bit time. And for me, it's a result of the understanding of the intertwined complexity of who we are in this world. Yeah. So the misidentification of the I as the mind, to me, is the fundamental elements that we really want to study and examine and to self-reflect constantly in life. Because we can say, let's say, for instance, everybody knows that the negative thoughts are not healthy for us, right? It doesn't feel good when we're thinking. And based on the, psychoneuroimmunology studies and all that, we all even know that those thoughts can impact our molecular level. Even, it changes the crystal of the water, and then it impacts the level of our health. It manifests as a disease, as an absence of ease. We all know that, right? And then how many of us are able to step outside of those thoughts and then stay leaning into the empowering and expansive thoughts 24/7? So that gap is what we want to practice bridging, right? So what we know intellectually is an information that you can read and you can listen to and you can contemplate mentally for a moment. Now, how can we shape our expression and our experience moment to moment align with that wisdom? I think it was somebody said, maybe it was Jay Shetty. Somebody says that the information turns into a wisdom when you are able to begin implementing and embody into your day-to-day life. So the goal is to turn that information into a wisdom. So we're carrying moment to moment. Yes. So a little opening question, which you don't need to answer, but how is it showing up? How does the misidentification of the I as a mind shows up in our life? Yeah. The first thing is that we start feeling disempowered or thinking a little bit negatively, and then we start thinking that that is ourself and our life, right? So believing in our thoughts, if we're believing in our thinking, it means that in that moment, we are actually misunderstanding the mind as an I. Does that make sense? There's a thought, and also there's a belief about the thought. So the moment you think a thought, let's say a little disempowering thought, or if somebody tells you something and then you kind of react a little bit, right? Those thoughts, or taking something personally, right? All those thoughts that arises rather automatically, whenever we have that, we want to self-reflect whether is that true or not? And am I believing this or not? And if it affects us, it affects only because we are believing it at that moment, right? Let's talk a little bit about, let's dissect a little bit what belief is. Belief is what's true for us. So what's real for us. So we all have different beliefs. One of the things that I talk about when I do this, live session, all that, everything that I share with everybody, everything that what comes out of my mouth is just a perspective. I'm not a big fan of saying that I teach modality or methodology because modality and methodology is just another way that somebody's framing in a particular way based on that person's perspective. For instance, what are the modalities out there, right? Yoga is something that people know as a modality, right? NLP is something that people know as a modality. Hypnosis is a modality, right? All those modalities. Modalities means that somebody packaged in a certain way and conceptualize and frame it so people can have a picture in their mind what it might be. But the truth is that if you go to two different yoga classes led by two different yoga teachers, you will have a completely different experience because yoga changes based on the instructors and the teachers' perception and the model of the world. So what I like to do is not to download and give different modalities, but to share my perspective, which is a point of view and an angle of how I am seen, which means that whatever that I share, because we are individual differentiation, and let's say if I share something, right, the moment you receive that information and the voice and the message that I share, you will filter immediately with your own perception. So you might not have the experience or understanding and the meaning of what I'm talking about from my point of view, but the best I can do is to share and explain the point of view, which, a lot of the things that I share is rooted in the holistic point of view perspective. And a holistic point of view is a quantum perspective of the understanding of the world. And then we all have this sort of receivership, right? But then you will receive based on your understanding and the perception. And it's really important to become aware that our experience and understanding is based on the filter that we are seeing through the world. So that lead me to have an anchor that whatever that I share, the perspective is just another perspective, and you don't need to buy into it. In another sort of perspective of the perspective that I want to share is that what that really means is that you don't need to agree with me at all. And I don't care if you disagree with me because that's not the point. And when we look at the world is operating based on that, right? Okay, you are here, you're here. I agree with you, I don't agree with you. I'm friend with you because I agree with you. I'm not a friend with you. All that, right? So when we have this individual lens and the perception, and each and every one of us can interpret uniquely differently for the good, therefore we can express and experience uniquely for the good. We don't need to have a complete agreement. Does that make sense? So my desire is for me to share with everybody, including those who are watching the recording, my interpretation of the world and myself and the mechanism and what has worked for me, and then to inspire and stimulate or even challenge your belief based on the desire that you have and the life that you want to be creating. Does that make sense? So I want everybody to pick and choose what works for you. And sometimes because we are all operating on the frequency, this which is something that I want to be talking about a little bit more, right? When you have a certain understanding and awareness, and when we have a certain standard or positive expectation of life, you kind of operate in a different frequency. We're all operating in a different radio station, right? Because the body and the inside is a massive vibrational molecule coming together. And the belief that we have, that intention we have, all of that can shape that frequency that we're in. So some of the stuff you might not be able to hear. Some of the stuff you might not be able to resonate, depending on, where you're coming from and what the angle is, right? But the invitation is to be fully open to it, like babies, and to begin receiving and circulating that energy, the meaning that comes through me, and to be able to notice what are the things that we can shift in order to create that we're here to create. And if I speak a little bit about the journey of the soul, the journey of the soul for me truly is a path of embracing and the path of integrating. Yeah. Integrating is such a wonderful word. Embracing is such a wonderful word, right? The moment you embrace the path that you have taken, you can not be in a denial mode. Now you're in an expansive frequency. And every step of the way, that the path that you have taken, or any circumstance or consequence that you are encountering currently, how can we meet from the perspective of embracing? Because that perspective actually is a choice. And for some people, it might be difficult to hear whatever that you might be going through or you have gone through, right? But if you stay in the resisting mode, denial mode versus embracing mode, it will only serve you when you move into embracing mode, right? You can start by, okay, Yuki said to embrace. Okay, let me go to embracing mode, right? And then how does it feel to embrace, right? And then you begin sort of exercising. Oh, this needs to change inside to embrace. Oh, this is happening inside of me that is resisting. Okay, where this resistance comes from, right? And begin shifting that internal energy because the internal energy, the resistance is coming from our perception. And perception is the lens that we're seeing. And a lot of the beliefs, what's real for us, have been constructed through all those encounters and interaction that we have had up to this point. And it's really important to become aware that that can become our internal seed to shape our perception to actually recreate another experience. I can talk about this for like 10 hours, just everybody, right? And then I like to kind of speak a little bit and then pause a little bit so you can process a little because it's something that interesting. A couple of people have told me some of the stuff that I share through this or anything that I do uh, is an accumulation of, my experience, of course, but also something bigger than me start speaking to and through me. So then it becomes more like an energy. Yeah. And it might not sit in your intellectual stuff, but then it might speak right through your identity and go right into the core to wake you up to begin opening up what has been actually suppressed and hinder. And uh, if I'm able to do that to every single person in a smaller scale or bigger scale, I feel like my mission is accomplished or this kind of session. So let's talk about integration. Yeah. And let's talk about holistic. So something that I was very excited about after I moved to Los Angeles in 2005 from Tokyo, initially through dance, right? But then I felt really called to explore more of the spirituality and consciousness. I initially moved to Los Angeles for dance, but I knew that something else was the reason that I was relocating internally. So I follow my intuition. And then when I was living in Los Angeles, I met a lot of people through the training that I was doing, and I witnessed that most people were sharing their life story with me. Sometimes you would notice, like when you do start doing like a one-on-one session, um, it like automatically becomes like a therapy for some reason. Whatever that I have done one-on-one session, people start talking to me their life, and I kind of noticed the pattern in people, how people, most people were in a complaining mode. Yeah. And then I felt like, okay, I really want to go deeper into the mind. I really want to go deeper into what's causing people to actually keep talking about that, right? And the holistic aspect of it, uh, different ways of looking at the world intrigued me, and it was pulling me to um, immerse myself in. So the school that I went, I had a resistance and hesitation for school longest time, but then I came back to school, but it was more of the holistic way of looking at the world. And I only needed to be there 2 years, taking 70 units. I was there 3 years, 3.5 years, taking 130 units because I wanted to, right? I was so fascinated by the idea of the consciousness, the spirituality, the transpersonal psychology, and all the energy modalities that I knew that there was an answer. And I chose the measure of holistic health because health was the way that I can applying things. I personally didn't want to be a therapist, but the school that I went to is a psychotherapy school that trains people to become a therapist. And I think what I found there was that I encounter the study of the soul. And I was convinced that every single symptom in life, which is the symptom in the body or symptom in the inner body, or symptom in the outer body, which is the 3D physical world. So when I say symptom in the outer body, means that anything that happens in life as a circumstance that is a symptom and an effect is a reflection or feedback or echo of the alignment or absence of alignment with the soul. Because the outer world is a reflection and the mirror of the inner world. The outer universe is a echo and the mirror of the inner universe. So what is the inner universe? The inner universe is the integration of the self and the soul. What is self and who is the self? The self is a concept in the mind, the image of you, the identification of you. So if you identify yourself as a soul, that is in the mind. Does that make sense? So there's a dichotomy in this life, which is so fascinating. This dichotomy is what we are here to integrate. And because of the dichotomy, so many people suffer and struggle. So many people who are on a spiritual path suffer and struggle to stay connected to the creator. They get right back into the illusion of the separation. Yeah. So when we are out in nature or when we are with and being in the energy of the music, or when you are with animals or babies who do not judge, or an ocean, people feel connected to something bigger than themselves, right? And the goal in the lifestyle that we want to begin creating, everybody, is to actually feel just that when you are by yourself, because you are one. Yeah. So the goal is, instead of saying, oh, nature out there, universe out there, God out there, you are one. You are the universe. You are the part of the life expression. You are the part of the portal through which the God can express through you. You are universe within and part of the whole. And then when we are able to begin living that way, we can practice, right? So the feeling that you feel being in nature, what is that? It's an expansion, right? You feel peaceful, you feel loving, you feel free. All those, you feel happy. All those state of being and emotion that everybody's seeking happiness, everybody's seeking peace, everybody's seeking freedom, everybody's seeking abundance. Yeah. What are they? They are, why are we seeking that? Because we already are one. So in the spiritual dimension, I'm gonna become a little technical, but I'm gonna slow down a little bit so we all can understand. In this 3D physical world is the realm of the relative, and Neil, my first teacher, calls contextual field, which I like. Yeah. So our identity of who we think we are, how we see ourselves. For instance, right now I'm sort of hosting this training, right? I'm speaking to everybody. So I am playing a role as a facilitator. I am playing a role as a guide, right? If I have a message and if I begin sharing that on social media or any presentation, I have this image and concept and a feeling about me that I am somebody who is voicing the soul mission to touch others, right? All those things that I mentioned is an identity in the mind. And it's not who I truly am. Because the identity of the mind is a concept, and that whatever that guide or facilitator, yeah, that image of me can only be formed if there's somebody else who is receiving. Yeah. So for instance, right now, there are a couple of people live. I'm talking. The talking and speaking and sharing will not happen if nobody's listening. Does that make sense? Nobody's receiving. I cannot give to anybody if there's nobody who is receiving. I cannot express. The expression that I demonstrate becomes an expression when there is a loop, right? So if you are living in an island by yourself without any relationship interaction or any other stuff, you wouldn't exist as a concept in the mind. And this is probably one of the most important angle that we want to explore because the absence of the understanding of that is making so many people stuck. Identity is very fluid and dynamic, right? We are creating our life through expression, and at the same time, you're being created through that environment. So that's the nature of the relative realm. Yeah. Now, that dimension has nothing to do with who we are. So that's the dimension of the self. That's the dimension of the construct of the mind. And the construct of the mind, that dimension has an idea around the past and the present and the future. The dimension of the spirit, which I call the fifth dimensional spiritual plane, doesn't have the concept and idea of time, doesn't have any differentiation, doesn't have any relativity. So the soul essence that is us is an absolute. So one of the books that I have used in the past that I really, really love, which I recommend everybody to read it, is The Greatest Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And the message of that book is that you are awareness. And then many people are seeking happiness. And when you're seeking happiness from the dimension of the mind, you feel like you want to get somewhere other than right here. Happiness is over there and I'm over here. I want to get over there to have, do, and be happy, right? The freedom is over there. I'm over here. Then I want to get somewhere else other than right here to acquire the freedom or peace or love. When we begin understanding the the core essence of who we truly are is absolute, it means that happiness is who we already are. Freedom is who we already are. Love is who we already are. And abundance is who we already are. We can play with different words, but let's examine this language. Who likes freedom? Anybody? Okay. In your mind, I would love for you to entertain what freedom is. When you're completely free, what is it? What happens? What needs to happen in order for us to feel free? What makes us feel not free? When What's the difference between when you're feeling free and when you're not? You don't need to answer. You can play the story inside. And then when I begin asking that question, can we feel and notice and recognize that, oh, I might be actually feeling freer when I have something. not having something that I want might be making me feel not free because I'm interpreting so. Is it the not having is making me not free, or the way that I'm seeing is making me not free? I mean, we're just kind of playing. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put that freedom aside. Who wants peace? Who wants to feel peaceful? Okay. Okay. So you can have all the peace because you already are, right? So if I say so, what happens? Is there a but coming, right? What is that though? What about inside of us that is actually preventing us from being who we are? Peace. Why? Just get over it. To be to be who we are. Okay, peaceful. When do you feel peaceful? Music, nature, meditation, or when we don't have chaos or a lot of sound or noise or distraction in our life that allows us to feel peace. What does it take to create that free peacefulness from the inside? Because all the things that we think that allows us to enter into that state tends to have an external environment, right? So what we want to practice is what shift we want to make internally in order to actually create that, not being dependent on the having and doing. Okay, who likes abundance? Abundance. Yeah. What is abundance? Is it what's the difference between abundance and freedom? You can experience freedom when you're abundant, but if you're completely free, isn't that abundant? Isn't it interesting, right? All those words has a little bit different nuance and angle and interpretation. Now, my abundance might not be the same as yours, and your abundance might not be the same as anybody else here. It's interesting. All these words, like happiness as well and love, we use under the assumption that people think and feel exactly the way that I'm or we are feeling, but there is a different nuance based on the cultural background, interpretation, and the meaning that we put into what that means for us. So living the life of the integration of the self and the soul is to begin demonstrating the essence of who we are in the dimension of the mind. So the way that we're expressing ourselves, let's make it a little bit practical, right? Your expression, including your thoughts that you think, the expression doesn't need to be expressing out for others to hear. It could be your internal expression, right? You're internally expressing your emotion, all those stuff, right? Those dimension of your thoughts and in feelings and emotions and the belief, when that is immersed with the quality of the soul, now your being and the experience is being integrated. So that is what I call universe within. When I do this kind of event, I tend to sort of, do postings and emails to begin stimulating and for me to begin entering into the spirit of the idea. And a couple of days ago, I posted and shared a conversation topic around my interpretation of what universe means. Universe, we're living in the universe. Universe is an interesting thing. Universe consists of two words. Uni means one, verse means versatile. Yeah, many different variations. So universe within means that uni, one, is the soul essence that is absolute changeless. Versatile is the identity, the fluidity of who we can become. And when the uni and the verse merges, it's universe, which is the marriage and the integration of the self and the soul. Now, a lot of people living a life forgetting and losing contact with the whole and the creator, that connection and the interpretation of us as a life expression and the oneness naturally comes when the internal universe begins forming. That's my experience. Does that make sense? Are we clear with the distinction between the inner universe and the outer universe? Yeah. Many people are seeking the oneness with the whole. And the separation from it is a result of the separation between the self and the soul inside. When the inside unites, you will have an automatic experience that you are feeling connected with the entire whole. And I mean, all of the things that we're talking about, everybody, is a concept and idea, right? And then how do we construct our life in a way that we can embody this version of us? So we begin vibrating, and our moment to moment expression and experience is rooted in freedom, is rooted in abundance, is rooted in happiness, is rooted in peace and love, demonstrating the essence of who we are moment to moment is self-realization. And then we are an embodiment degree of the self-realization. And when we are studying that and when we are practicing that, yeah. And then when we stop, this is the natural tendency that I see, and this is my exact path that I have taken. When I begin experiencing my own transformation and a shift and expansion of the awareness, it's a natural tendency to want to give it that to others because there's nothing better than this, right? Then the path of soulpreneur is to train all of us to embody forming that identity so we can become the guide to create a ripple effect so others can begin joining this spaceship. I don't know if I told you that the first song that I was playing is called Spaceship. And if you, Spaceship, yeah. And then I'll share with everybody in the school group. The second song that I was playing was called Awakening. So actually, when you're waiting the countdown, you are in the spaceship going into that awakening. That's my visual. That's why I wanted people to come 8 minutes before. If you didn't come 8 minutes before, I'll be doing the same thing tomorrow. So if you can come at 9:52, that's the time that I'll be playing the music. Yeah. And then I almost bought a pilot hat or something because I'm driving the spaceship right now. And the spaceship is going. Yeah. So whatever the desire that you have right now, right? People are in a different stage in your life. If you are focusing on the health, if you're focusing on the um, overcoming and shifting out of the past pattern, you might have somebody who has a business and you are called to also awaken the world. We have so many different options to embody, and that's what we're creating. The Soul Purpose Group, school group, um, we launched the school group on August 8th, 2024. And if you look at 2024, 2024 is 8. So basically, we launch on 888 by design. Yeah, I don't know if anybody knew that. That's the date that we launch it. And we are coming together to practice that unity, that integration, because anything else that you are seeking, right? There are a lot of things that put us into a survival mode, right? the contrast and the relationship that you feel like you want to change, or some sort of health stuff that's in the way. Or there are a lot of people who have this sort of resistance around the financial stuff. Or there might be people who are working on cultivating the belief inside to be able to feel good about themselves, right? All of the thing, it, all of those are manifestation of the core separation that we're experiencing. And then when we begin integrating that, you become so powerful because that's what we are here to do. We are here to, we are designed to forget who we are and disconnect from that whole, only to remember who we are, to begin walking the path of remembering who we are. And then when we remember the path of who we are and begin practicing uniting your personality, what's real for you, into the soul essence of who you are, how you are designed to express here on earth, everything, the symptom level around health, relationship, money, lack of confidence will be taken care of because those are manifestation of the one thing. That's my belief, and that's my interpretation of this world. Everything is a symptom of the separation, and the symptom of the separation is life informing us to go back to unite. We talk about awareness. I want to talk a little bit about awareness. The education that we are forming here is to draw out from within. And there are a lot of medicine in the world, but I have come to realize that the expansion of the awareness through education to draw out from within is the most powerful medicine. And then what does it mean to become aware when we are awareness? What does it mean to become aware when we are awareness? So this is something that the greatest secret talk about Rhonda Byrne. Whatever the thoughts that arises, none of those thought contents are you, because that's another activities of the mind. You're the one who can notice it. It's almost like there's a thought here, and then you're right behind you, and then you're observing it, right? So the expansion of awareness, becoming aware of something, really means that the mind expands its capacity to know and feel, to become more aware of. So the awareness of the mind begin getting closer and closer to the awareness itself, which is who you truly are. So another angle that I can explain is that the work that we're doing is to expand our belief. Expanding our belief is expanding what's real for us, right? What's real for us depends on the interpretation of yourself and the interpretation of the world. Now, what we are doing is expanding what's real for us so it gets closer and closer to what we already know to be true. The knowing is where we want to come from. Yeah. The knowing is the language of the soul and the spiritual. So when we know, you don't need to believe. And when we're working on some project or moving through life, often beliefs interferes because when we haven't reconciled something internally as something that's real for us, that's hinder our behaviors and an expression, but the goal is to begin exercising that belief, what's real for us, to begin meeting what we already know. Okay, if I keep talking about this angle, I think I'm gonna lose everybody because sometimes, you know, it requires a little bit of steps for people to begin absorbing. I'm gonna interview Jan. Is that okay? I'd like to interview somebody each day. And I asked Jan to, I think I said Jan to come on day one, yeah? I'm gonna pin Jan. I wanna pin myself too. Pin. Oh, perfect. Oh, and then somebody's joining at the perfect time. Many people who are here know already Jan. Jan is a sole purpose alchemist. He started to be a part of the team for the sole purpose group a couple of months ago. And he joined, I think you said that you were one of the first 10 people who joined the
First
school
5.
group. Yeah. So I guess what I would like to hear and share with everybody, Jan, is I know we went to do a interview session on Tuesday and it took us 90 minutes. We don't need to spend 90 minutes. Maybe like a 5-10 minutes. If you could share as much as you feel comfortable, your like a brief story of you, and then I would love to hear what got you to be a part of what we're doing and what has shifted.
Okay. You may need to interrupt me if I waffle.
Yeah.
Sure. And just remind me of the various steps. Before I get going, I like the mandala on your wall. Very nice. That's new.
Yeah, that was like I did that arrived out like 10 days ago, but I didn't put it until last night.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Okay. So where do I start? I'm going to start a little bit in the future and then I'll go back. I'll try and do it as fast as I can.
Go into the future first. That's interesting.
Well, further into the story.
Okay.
So a big, but not definitely not in the top of list things that I tell people. But a big thing about me is that I was a drug addict for many years, and the reason why I say that is because so I'm in a 12-step fellowship, and in that fellowship we share regularly about our stories. And for the last 9 years, my story was one of like a Peter Pan type story of Jan the Neglected. And that sort of ended about 3 years ago as a culmination of things that I'll come back to in a second. But anyway, so that story of Jan the Neglected, I now suddenly understand as through what Yuki is talking about, everything that he said. My understanding of it now is that for whatever reasons, I had to grow up really quickly as a child and take on quite a lot of responsibility, which was but at the same time, I lived in a complete and total fantasy world. And I found drugs at a very young age. And it was the best thing ever because I managed to get outside of the self, myself, which was ultimately what I was craving on the deepest level. And so, you know, that's, and then so I did that for most of my life. When I chose to become a drug addict, there was no backup plan. There was no, it was a decision that I made as like a child almost, that I did not want to be a participating member of life. It's too hectic, it's too hard, and it's there's too much, And so I did that until it broke me. I was 29 years old, and then at that point, I had, I guess, my first awakening, and I thought that I had done everything, the most important thing that I needed to do, and life was just going to fall into place. White picket fence, partner, money, all of the things. Put down the drugs, and everything comes right. But I didn't have the same experience as a lot of people who had lives to go back to. You know, they could go to their bosses and say, "I'm clean now," or go to their partners and say, "Can I see my children? I'm clean now," whatever. I had to build it all, and I guess this is also possibly a belief. But so, and then so I did that for 9 years, up until the point where I was living in Sweden. I had a lovely partner. We had a flat. We were trying our best at life. And long story short, it didn't work out, and I had to come back. At that point, I experienced a more significant rock bottom than I did putting down drugs, because I was really trying life. I was really trying to do the things. I was really trying to be and reading all the books, electric toothbrushes, car payments, the whole caboodle, but hollow inside, and anxious and fearful, and just not okay. And so I ended up back in South Africa, and I needed to, the bank was looming, and all sorts of, and I needed to start making money again. And there was this part of me that wanted to build, go back, start a new business, find a new partner, try again, like I've tried so many times. And I just ended up, I felt really called to sit. And so I sat for a long time, and there's parts of this that I can talk about for a very long time. But essentially what happened was, through a lot of crying, and I never cried before that, but through a lot of crying and a lot of therapy and a lot of all the things, modalities, shadow work, all of the things, the only thing that those things told me was that they don't work. And just a side note here is, yeah, I'll leave that out. So, being in therapy feels a little bit better than being on the couch, like in the fetal position, but it's the same thing. And that was what I was starting to realize. It was that I was in this pattern, or this frequency, or whatever you want to call it. And I didn't know how to get out of it, because anything that I reached for, whether it was therapy, going to the gym, a new partner, a new business, or whatever, it caused pain, which was odd. And so I started meditating, and I started going into the stillness, and I started to get the first glimpse of that this is potentially a spiritual problem. And so I dived hard into that in the most intellectual way I possibly could. But I needed to do that, I realized, because in a meditation, I realized that all the things that I was reaching for, and it started with donuts, like it started with drugs. And then when I got clean, it became food or relationships or whatever. And then, and none of it was working. I realized in an instant, I got this download of, like, whether it's a donut or a spiritual book or therapy or whatever it is, I'm reaching for something outside of myself to fix an inside problem. And that was this magical epiphany for me, and I never knew the language until I met Yuki, that I am a spiritual being having a physical experience, not a physical creature reaching for a spiritual experience. And it must have been a few months after like that I decided, I started my own community on school, and I was in another community, and which helps you with marketing. And I was on there like learning the things, and then this thing popped up. Someone posted something, and the language that he was using was magical to me. It was because I have a massive aversion against sales and against traditional sort of objection-based sales and all of it. And what he was talking about was, you got to be all of everything what he's been talking about is, it's the energy of it that's important. And saying things like it's your job as a salesperson to help the person to make a decision, and even if that decision is not to work with you, that's your purpose there. Your job is not necessarily to convince people, and this type of stuff resonated really strongly with me. So obviously I sent him a message, and he said he has a school that he's launching in a couple of days, and so I went into the first workshop. And still, I guess, with a very strong attachment to logic and trying to understand the world and trying to understand things, and very reliant, because that's how I navigated danger, was to understand the minutiae of everything. And so I had an experience. I still was traumatized. Even that language was very present for me at the time. And in that workshop, Yuki said something like, your trauma, he wasn't speaking directly to me, but he was speaking directly to me. Your trauma is just a perception. And then he did all of the T's and C's of that, and saying like, I'm not gaslighting you. I'm not like, it's just try and hear the words without all of the past, present baggage, if I could use Yuki's language, interpreting it. But he never said any of that. It was very beautifully curated. But only now do I realize that it's not the words that I heard. It was from where they came. It was the way that he was expressing it on an energetic level. It penetrated me, and I realized, like, I moved out of the trauma, and very much started to see everything in my life, all of the this story, Jan the Neglected, this thing that I'd been carrying around with me for so long, and even told in a beautiful way, just to make it a little bit more palatable for myself. But all of that fell away, and it was like, okay, like that was it all brought me to this moment. And there was all of these like little magical epiphanies and awakenings and all of these things. So then another important part of this that I think, just to mention before I stop, is how did I find myself on school? I realized that there something needed to be addressed around the way that I spoke to myself. And then I remembered that when I was in rehab 12 years ago, well, at that point, 10 years ago, that they said to me that I need to do affirmations in the mirror and talk to myself better and all of these type of things. And at the time when I tried to do it, I almost threw up. I had such an aversion to it that I went to the people and I said, I'm not doing that, mind my language, bullshit. It's rubbish. It's too woohoo. I'm not doing that. It's like, I'm whatever. I really, really wish that I did do it. I really, really wish that I did it, that I tried to at least speak to myself nicely and to like look myself in the eyes on the deepest level and say, I love you and these type of things. Anyway, so I started wanting to do that. And then this thing popped up magically on Instagram, maybe my phone was listening to me or something, and this other guy with a different community, which was all about affirmations. And so off I went there, and that's how I found Yuki. What happened there was, I made a decision, because I'm naturally a quite introverted person, and even been told before that I have one syllable days and what have you. So, but my tendency was to lurk, was to consume a lot of information very passively, but not get involved. And but something about these stepping stones was guiding me more and more into being more taking more action. And so by the time I found myself in Yuki's community in the early days, I was just like, I'm all in, and I just started participating, and I just started commenting. I just started getting the nature of being that way had a massive effect on me. It is such an important part of this thing that we're trying to do. There's been moments over the last since August last year where I've completely checked out, where I've found myself overwhelmed, where I've but it's all just this past present version of myself that starts to creep in and starts to spin stories, and then when the pain gets enough, I come back, and it's just interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna stop there.
Yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
A couple of things that you spoke, Yan, that I want to highlight, that I want everybody to hear is, one is when you say attachment to the logic. Because attachment to the logic is the reflection of the ego wanting to stay stuck. For me, it's good to be able to understand things, just like we're talking about in the conception stuff, but then I don't know any way that we can change only using logic, because I don't think that's how change occurs. When I'm very much into language, yeah, and so the acknowledgement and the recognition in the mind is the understanding, but accepting the concept and idea is realization in the subconscious mind. So everybody is seeking change. And in order for us to change our life, to create a shift, we must change. And what needs to be changed is this feeling about us. And it's interesting, like when I hear you speak, Jan, and this is for all of us. My vision and intention is for each and every one of us to truly connect with our own voice and to fully express that to the world. That's all there is. And what about what's inside of us that is preventing ourselves from limiting that? Yeah. And then, one of the things that we're intending to do in the Soul Purpose group is to begin creating the culture of the circulation. And that's what you say, right? We want people to participate. We want people to share. We want people to interact and connect, because everybody is subconsciously living in this world wanting to receive, right? I wanna feel differently. So where's the place that I can go to receive? But then the receiving is going to happen when we begin giving. That's one of the things that I learned the most from Neil, where, and here's the pitfall. Many people don't give. Don't give means that to express their voice, to influence and share and assist others. That's what I mean by giving. Yeah. Because they don't believe that they have something to give powerfully, right? That's why they don't move into action. And then they wait for somebody who they perceive as more powerful to share something. But then what I'm envisioning is that that's just another programming and belief and the perception. Like we can look at each one of us, look at the world and see people who have influence, right? See people who are we see as an inspiration. In every single one of us can be that. That's what I believe. And the more you begin giving, the more you start cultivating that fire of believing in yourself to touch and move others. And I feel like that is the circulation that we're building. That is what we want to create. Um, and then what you mentioned earlier around speaking to the core because I was coming from a different place. That is another, culture that we're building where we want people to understand that there is a story of the wound based on our past experience, but the story of the essence that's aligned with who you are doesn't have any pain. The pain that we have experienced or the limitation that we have constructed through our past present is living in the dimension of the mind, and that is not who you are. So when we really, really, really understand that, to disassociate from that story and stepping into the core of who you are, a lot of stuff start dissolving and shifting because this universe is self-corrected and self-organized. So when we combine and integrate the spirituality and the psychology, a lot of things start shifting easily. And then that's also another message that we have in this group, that you don't need to struggle and suffer to live a life of freedom and abundance and peace and love, because you already are. And how can we step into that version of us lightly? Because the nature of the soul is playful, nature of the soul is curious, nature of the soul is lightness. Nothing needs to be heavy. Heaviness is a perception based on the egoic mind. Um, Thank you so much for sharing, Jan. I mean, a part of that is the shift in you happened because of the willingness to be open, to look at things from a different place. And maybe you needed to do that because of the level of the pain that you are in. But now, you can probably feel from within you that you're stepping into a different sort of frequency and a place, and you're not caught. I mean, all of us has some sort of limits that we can continue to remove, yeah. But you are definitely not at the place where, oh, I gotta work on myself, because right, you are in the energy of giving. Okay, how can I help this person? How can I help this person? And then when people start stepping into that frequency, a lot of the stuff starts shifting inside of us. Something that I say is that this path of awakening and realization is done by illuminating the world. And as we illuminate the world, we get polished and then go deeper along the way. So it's truly a dance of giving and receiving. So um, thank you for being here and thank you for sharing. And uh, I am so excited to create more of that with you, with everybody. And everybody already is feeling your energy. So that's amazing. And your best friend Tom is saying that your story is his story and he's gonna go next tomorrow. So that's gonna be good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna unpin you, remove pin, and I'm gonna unpin myself. Okay. Uh, we're gonna finish in 5 minutes, but I wanna share the school group. So I have pinned here the day one realization. If you go here, you will see a little bit of the stories around. And if you could go here to share what spoke to you the most, what inspired you the most, whatever, depending on where you are right now, everybody has received this information a little bit differently. That'd be great. And then if you go to classroom, you will see this, the second one being whole. And then if this is locked, just use this post to ask to unlock. But if you go here, the pregame video is over here. The recording of this session will be here. And then the realization you can come from here. And each day we have a practice. So here, day one practice is this. I don't know if I can enlarge it. So name 3 areas in your life you can now see from a holistic quantum point of view based on what I share. Yeah. The questions that I'm asking here might not be something that you can answer in 5 minutes, and I intentionally made it so. So you can contemplating a little bit, but it will help all of us to move into implementing on a day-to-day life. So once you share the realization, the second step is to actually participating in this practice. Number 2 is describe how the viewer, now that you have a holistic view, the viewer, you shift it, changes your experience. What is the shift that you experience by shifting your perception? Number 3 is what is one thing you see happening when the self integrates with the soul essence, as I express and share. Yeah. And then if you are not sure what these questions mean, you can kind of ask here as well. Hold on, let me turn on comments so you can actually answer. So this, actually, let me pin both so you have access. Or somebody's already, this might be Tom. Tom is already typing. He's already the number, always the number number 1, right? And tomorrow this is gonna be here, and then special offer is a secret right now. If you go to Wholeness Index, I share 7 different things that I will be speaking. I'm speaking through day 1 and day 2, so you can have a clear understanding of my viewpoint of what these are. Yeah. And then all the music that I have played or I'll be playing will be here under the Wholeness soundtrack. So thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic day.